Hi, I'm Danielle Karen, and in this podcast, I'm going to share with you knowledge and tools that I believe should be accessible to everyone. They're fundamental and essential to being human. Embody Your Power is an integrative model that bridges science, spirituality, and ancient wisdom to give you the resources needed to live your fullest potential. As a psychotherapist for over 16 years and now as a coach, I help people know, reclaim, and embody their power on all levels. It's my mission to help you connect to your unshakable resilience, to know true power and freedom, to be sovereign, and to remember your divine nature. If you're wanting to learn tools to release layers of conditioning, heal from trauma, feel at home in your body, have inner peace, expand your capacity for joy, connect spiritually, and take a journey with me to embody your power, then this podcast is for you. Thank you for joining me. Together, let's raise our consciousness to help evolve humanity. In this episode, I will explore how to support your innate impulses to heal from trauma. Have you ever had a threat to your life, body, or well-being? For example, any type of abuse, attack, or assault, a car accident, a fall, or an invasive medical procedure? Have you ever had an experience where you wanted to fight back or run away, but you weren't able to? If so, I think you'll find this information very helpful. In the face of any real or perceived threat to our body and well-being, we have instinctual drives that help us survive. Any type of threat to ourselves or others can be a traumatizing experience. Trauma can be defined as anything that overwhelms our capacity to integrate and experience. A simple definition is too much, too fast. In these situations, our body, mind, and spirit react quickly, doing the best they can to survive. However, this reaction to trauma can leave parts of us feeling disconnected, abandoned, conflicted, and continuing to relive the traumatic event. This is a source of tremendous suffering for many people. After trauma, we can feel like what once felt whole is now scattered into fragments. Fortunately, there is a drive toward completion that ripples through these disconnected parts in an attempt to regain wholeness and resolution with the past. However, without greater understanding of these innate drives, and often the guidance of a skilled trauma specialist, the drive toward completion misses many opportunities to move forward to resolution. I'm going to reveal how we're wired for survival and completion, and how these innate drives present themselves in the face of threats to our well-being, and how they're utilized to heal from trauma. For example, let's say I'm walking down the street and I notice someone's coming toward me. If this person starts to come toward me quicker or with more intent, I'm going to register that this could be dangerous. My brain is going to react fast to try to protect me. There's a fundamental drive to survive that runs deep within us. In the face of any real or perceived threat, this innate drive takes over and makes quick decisions to protect us. There's no discussion, there's no hesitation. Something in us takes action to protect our physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being. Let's explore how we're wired for survival. Physiologically, we only have a few options when confronted with a threat. Occasionally, we can communicate and negotiate with the threat to diffuse it. But more commonly, that's not an option, and we have impulses to fight, flight, or freeze. In the example of someone coming toward me on the street, I'm most likely going to have an impulse to run away first. But let's say I'm running away, and at some point I notice I'm not going to be fast enough. Then I may prepare to fight, and if at any point I realize I'm not strong enough, I may try to plead with this person to stop. And if all of those don't work, my body's going to resort to freezing. By freezing, we also dissociate, which means our brain attempts to numb us as much as it can to the pain we're about to endure by releasing certain chemicals. In addition, the freeze response attempts to decrease the overwhelming intensity of pain, injury, and even death. However, freezing is generally our last resort when it comes to survival. It appears that our first impulse is not only to survive, but to use our power to stop or defeat the threat and thrive. When we're able to stop the threat, we feel strong, confident, and powerful at protecting ourselves and have an easier time navigating future threats. Unfortunately, in many cases, the threat is bigger, faster, or comes without warning. For example, when children are being threatened by parents or adults, then the threat is bigger and faster than them. Threats that can come without warning could be getting hit by something when you didn't see it coming, a car accident, something dangerous happening when you're sleeping, an affair or betrayal you didn't see coming. In these situations, it's common for our brain to decide freezing is the best survival option. Freezing stops the original impulse to fight or flight from completing. As a result, our bodies can get stuck in a pattern of freezing or trying to complete a fight or flight impulse without ever feeling a sense of resolution. The original impulses to survive and defeat the threat continue to live in the body, waiting to experience completion. Fortunately, it's never too late to heal from trauma. Now, the drive for completion arises out of our wiring to feel powerful and that we can protect ourselves. You can see this in children in play therapy. When something traumatic has happened, they're trying to find a new and successful outcome through their play. For example, let's say a child choked on something and had to be rushed to the hospital. Sometime after that event, they may pretend like they're choking on their food and then spit it out to gain a sense of mastery over something that felt so scary. Compartmentalizing an experience is an attempt to take part or all of a particular experience and to various degrees protect us from being exposed to the cognitive, emotional, somatic, or sensational memory because it was too painful and overwhelming. This may help us survive. However, it's not ideal to have to compartmentalize our experiences. It takes a lot of energy to do so and maintain. There's a drive toward completion that lives in these compartmentalized parts of ourselves and will move toward being connected and integrated again when it's safe to do so. We are wired for completion. When we're not able to stop or defeat the threat, we do the best we can to survive physical, sexual, emotional, verbal, psychological, or any relational type of trauma. However, once we survive a threat to our well-being, there's still a drive to complete what is needed in order to feel a sense of resolution. This is not limited to life-threatening experiences or traumas. The brain and body also respond positively to completing other experiences that weren't are necessary for our growth, development, and health. It could be something in the past that actually happened that we weren't able to complete or something that was missing altogether. For example, let's say a boy got the message that his father would be angry if he outperformed his father in sports or business. This boy would benefit from knowing what it would have felt like to have someone support him in succeeding in life. In another example, some people may have not experienced love, protection, validation, empathy, or safety in their families. These experiences are extremely important, and the body needs to know what these experiences feel like in order to thrive. It's not enough to just talk about what was missing or how it would have been to receive it. The body literally needs to feel it. When the brain and body are connected and experience a completion, then we create a new experience for ourselves. In doing so, we can't change the past, but we can create a new relationship to the past. Let's take a look at the importance of your body feeling a new experience. Imagine yourself at a restaurant with a friend. Pretend for a moment that all the items on your menu are all of your life experiences from day one until now. Your friend's life is different than yours, so they have different items on their menu. Let's say that your friend tells you that they're going to order an apple pie. You look at your menu and you don't see that listed. You don't even see apples on your menu. So you ask your friend, what is apple pie? They describe to you what apples are and how they're prepared and baked to make an apple pie. However, if you've never eaten an apple in your life, it might be hard to imagine what your friend is talking about. The best you can get is some conceptual idea of what apple pie is. You won't know the smell, taste, texture, or the details of what it looks like. It isn't until you get the experience of eating apple pie that you can really know what it is. Your body must experience this for you to have it on your menu. And items need to be on your menu in order for you to be able to order them. It's also important to experience what apple pie tastes like in order to know the difference between apple pie and other kinds of pies. When you take this analogy into the real world and you want someone who's attuned to you, meaning people who are paying attention and sensitive to what you're experiencing and needing on the menu, for example, because let's say growing up, you were being told what to do and people were projecting their needs onto you, then it's important for you to know what this feels like. In this analogy, you can see that if you don't update your menu or have new experiences, you'll continue to order the same things off the menu. In life, this could look like getting into the same kind of relationship that doesn't work for you, using substances or food to numb emotions, giving your power away or trying to have power over others, people-pleasing, or criticizing yourself. In a way, I see healing from trauma as a process of updating our menus, getting things on the menu that we're missing. For example, the feeling of someone supporting you and succeeding in your life or tuning to your needs. Separating the things that got mixed together, which are our triggers and where we feel anxious in relationship to certain things. For example, because someone got into a car accident while a certain song was playing, now they have an aversion to that song. Bringing together the things that got pulled apart. For example, if someone doesn't like or trust their body, then we want to bring those two things together so they can experience their body in a healthy way. We want to have more options, and we don't want to feel like we're stuck ordering the same things over and over again. Without updating our menu, we can feel limited in our lives. We can feel inhibited from engaging with others and with life. This can be exhausting and often isolating. Next, I'll explore some of the methods I draw from to help people heal from trauma. I will specifically focus on the methods that were developed by Dr. Peter Levine and Dr. Richard Schwartz and how I synthesized them. Peter Levine developed a body-based method for healing from trauma called Somatic Experiencing, or SE for short. Dr. Levine's work started with a burning question. Why don't wild animals become traumatized when their lives are routinely threatened, given that our nervous systems are similar to animals, right? Animals also respond to threat with fight, flight, and freeze responses. My very simplified summary of what Dr. Levine found through his years of research is that although animals have similar nervous systems to humans, the reason why they don't exhibit signs of trauma after a life-threatening experience is because they rarely disconnect their awareness from their body and from being present. The times that they do disconnect during a freeze response is time-limited. Wild animals quickly connect their awareness back to their body and its innate impulses and freely allow them to complete. Humans, however, can inhibit this natural process by staying disconnected from their body and what it's naturally wanting to do. When we disconnect from our body, we stop the process of the impulses moving through to completion. The impulses don't disappear, but we lose track of how to connect to them again. Somatic experiencing is a process of bringing awareness to the body and nervous system. Through this awareness, we connect our mind and body, which allows us to experience our innate drive for completion. The body-mind connection can also be utilized to regulate the nervous system or our internal state. As a result, we can learn to regulate intense feelings and emotions and not feel at the mercy of a dysregulated nervous system. Ultimately, we become more embodied and resilient to future threats as we're more aware of our connection with our body. When helping someone experience a completion from the past, it's important to create a supportive environment to return to in their mind so that their body can feel safe enough to execute its original impulses to stop or defeat the threat. For example, if the original event was so overwhelming that the brain and body had to resort to dissociating, then we don't want to encourage someone to talk about the event as it happened. Instead, we import resources and support into the past to make it more manageable, to be present with, and to be able to integrate the new experience. In other words, we don't want someone to have to freeze, dissociate, or disconnect from their body again to talk about a traumatic event. If someone does disconnect from their body while talking about it, it can be re-traumatizing by making their original neural pathways stronger. In addition, by importing missing resources, we're able to create a new relationship with the past. A few examples of importing resources include importing your present-day core self into the past to help your younger self, freezing the threat, making the threat smaller, making yourself bigger, creating boundaries, or putting the threat as far away as needed in order to feel a sense of safety. It's important to work within a range that is manageable at all times, meaning we never want someone to feel overwhelmed in their body. This allows us to be present and aware of the innate wisdom that arises from our body to heal from trauma. In order to work within a range that's manageable, it's vital to titrate the intensity of what we're experiencing. Titration can be described as taking something big and breaking it down into smaller pieces that we're able to integrate. If I gave you a sandwich, you wouldn't put the whole thing in your mouth at once because the body would reject it. Titration is taking small bites so that you can chew it and digest it and integrate it. By importing resources and support into a past traumatic event, we can be more present with our bodies and therefore more aware of the original impulses that may arise in order to experience completion. When the impulse arises, we imagine ourselves allowing the impulse to move through us, and we do this in slow motion or by slowing down the imagery. Why slow motion? Well, because we want to make sure that we can track what we're feeling in our body when we're imagining the new experience. When we bring mindfulness and awareness to both our body and mind during the visualization, the brain and body experience it as if it's actually happening. In doing so, we create a new corrective experience that allows the mind and body to know what it's like to have a new empowering experience. This creates new neural pathways that restore confidence and flexibility in navigating future threats and moves encapsulated experiences frozen in time through to completion for lasting change. Fortunately, there's a mechanism in the brain that will not only allow us to rewrite the script on these past experiences, but will prioritize the new empowering experience. Now let's take a look at Richard Schwartz's model called internal family systems. He talks about the multiplicity of the mind and that we're made up of many different parts of ourselves. And there are two main parts that carry burdens that are the ones that cause us the most trouble and suffering. Burdens are beliefs, messages, and experiences that we carry around that burden us. They can often cause us to feel heavy and prevent us from accessing our authentic self. We can carry beliefs and messages that aren't true for us, ones that we picked up from others. For example, I'm not good enough, boys don't cry, I'm not lovable, life is against me. Parts can be burdened by being forced into roles that are outside of their true nature and expression. A common example is when a child's natural desire to play gets overtaken by the role to be overly responsible at a young age. So we want to work with the burdened parts because when we heal those parts, we have greater access to our core, resilient self. Richard Schwartz identified that there are exiled parts of us that hold the pain and vulnerability of traumatic experiences, and that there are also protective parts that are trying to protect us from this pain and from getting hurt again. When these parts separate from us, then we can access our core self, which exists right below the surface of the parts. Dick Schwartz calls this the self with the capital S, and I call it the core self. And this is when we feel most like ourselves. It's our true essence. Dick Schwartz describes the qualities of the core self as curious, compassionate, courageous, confident, connected, creative, calm, and clear. In other words, how we feel when our pain, fear, or insecurities aren't taking over. It's from this state that we want to engage with the other parts of ourselves in order to assist them in resolving past trauma and releasing burdens. Let's look at some examples of protectors, exiles, and burdens. Let's say someone grew up with a mom that was unpredictable, sometimes loving and sometimes angry and mean. The exile would be the part of the child that carries the emotional pain and sadness of their mom being mean and angry toward them. The exile may also internalize and carry beliefs or burdens that they caused their mom to be mean, they're not good enough, or they can't count on others for support in life. A child's protectors that can come from this situation might be a part that's anxious about the future because their mom was so unpredictable. So the anxious part is trying to predict the future so that they don't get caught off guard. Another protector part that can form is a part that strives to be a perfectionist to try to prevent someone from being mean or angry at them. Or a protector part that's overly independent and that turns away from others for support and adopts an attitude of, I can do it myself. When there's a traumatic experience, the protector parts try to help us survive by taking over in the best way that they know how. They're responsible for pushing away the pain, and as a result, the exiled parts become abandoned or compartmentalized. However, the exiled parts are determined to experience completion, and in due time, they'll try to get the core self's attention in order to heal. The exiled parts know that they can't just get your attention subtly, or the protectors will quickly lock them away again. So when the exiles see a chance to break through, they try to get your attention with intensity, through intense feelings, flashbacks, nightmares, or even bodily illness and disease. The wisdom in this is that if they can get your attention, they have a chance to heal and no longer stay stuck in the past, reliving the pain. Once the exiles can feel a connection with our core self and are able to feel seen, heard, understood, and ultimately unburdened, they can experience resolution with the past, and the protective parts can finally relax and take on more supportive roles to the core self. This process is liberating, and as a result, we have greater access to our core self. As we work with our parts and help them experience completion, we're less fragmented and more integrated. Our whole internal system shifts so that we're more aware of our parts and able to lead and stay connected from our core self. This is the goal, as the core self is the most wise, resilient, present, and resourced aspect of ourselves, and we'd want to live from this place as much as possible. The protectors are like bodyguards created by the psyche to try to protect the whole system from experiencing the pain and vulnerability that was endured in the past. Protectors can take over automatically, often in the form of being judgmental, avoidant, anxious, angry, intellectual, impulsive, or addicted. They have one mission, which is to try to prevent you from experiencing or becoming overwhelmed by the pain again. What do we do when the protectors take over and obscure our self? Similar to how we work with the body, we can help someone experience a sense of completion with the pain that caused the formation of the protectors. Protectors are attempting to protect the whole inner system from the exiles, which carry the pain and vulnerability that we experienced in the past. An exile is being compartmentalized by the protectors so that it doesn't overwhelm us. However, as long as the exile is compartmentalized, then the protectors will feel the need to take over and protect the system, which results in us not feeling most like ourselves. Why does the protector feel the need to protect the system when the core self is actually more competent than the protector parts? The protectors do this because they either don't know about the core self or they don't trust the core self. Building trust between the core self and both the protectors and exiles is essential. The parts need to know about the core self and trust it for them to relax. I represent the core self as the sun because it's always available and shining. The protectors are represented as clouds because they're clouding out the sun when they're present. And the exiles I draw as a little stick figure in a bubble. They're in a bubble because they're stuck in time, reliving pain, trauma, or vulnerability. In order to have more access to the core self, we want to help the protectors feel seen and heard by the core self for their positive intentions to help or protect us. This is important because for many of us, there's a tendency to be aggressive toward our protectors, right? If we have a part that's causing us grief, we tend to want to get rid of it, make it go away, criticize it, or ignore it. However, being aggressive toward these parts generally results in the protectors becoming bigger and stronger to ensure that they're successful at their job. They are very loyal parts, and they always have wisdom. They'll do anything in their power to protect you from getting hurt or feeling pain. It's essential to respect the protectors, gain their trust, and let them decide when they're ready to put down their guard and reveal the pain and vulnerability that's been compartmentalized. Once the protector parts feel seen and start to know and trust the core self, they can relax and reveal the exiled parts that they're trying to keep locked away. The pain that the exile is carrying is often frozen in time because when the original threat occurred, we generally didn't have the resources or support to integrate it. The exile can carry impulses that haven't been able to complete. When the pain gets triggered in the present, you can feel very similar to how you felt when the original threat occurred. For example, if in your present relationship your partner shows up late, it might trigger the pain the exile is carrying from the past when this part felt so sad, alone, and forgotten when their parent would forget to pick them up at school. The work is to help the exile feel seen and heard and to experience the core self as not being afraid of their pain. What do I mean by that? These parts need the core self to show up with an open heart and present and not need to run away or fix their pain. This is truly a healing process. We also help these parts experience new corrective experiences in their relationship with the core self. We ultimately want to help this part move through time and feel a sense of resolution with the past and unburden the exiles of the pain, beliefs, and messages that they've been carrying. Once that happens, the protectors can relax or take on a more supportive role, and we have more access to the core resilient self. My goal is to always work within a range of regulation or manageability. When we're doing that, we can be present with the experience and notice what it needs to feel a sense of completion. Oftentimes, our childhood pains and vulnerabilities were dismissed or ignored by others. And it's important that we don't perpetuate this, so we take care to give these parts and experiences our attention and acknowledge them with compassion around what happened. We can also help create a corrective experience by reparenting parts of ourselves that didn't get their needs met. This results in feeling a sense of resolution with the past. The spirit or soul can also leave the body when it's about to experience a major threat or trauma. Again, this is a way of compartmentalizing the pain and suffering so that it doesn't compromise all of us. Soul loss can be described as the soul or parts of the soul leaving the body in order to not become compromised by the traumatic event. This phenomenon can also be described as dissociation. In fact, Dr. Peter Levine has used these terms soul loss and dissociation synonymously. Dissociation can be explained as the awareness leaving the body so that we're not fully present to the pain. This is a compassionate response designed to lessen the impact of the pain and/or not consciously remember it. By importing resources and support and creating a safer environment than the original one to revisit and complete defensive responses and experience corrective experiences, we can provide the conditions for the soul to return to the body. Most importantly, what many people report at the root of integrating past traumatic events through completions and corrective experiences is feeling their life energy and power return to them. I believe the core self is never compromised. It is an aspect of us that always remains whole. In my integrative model, Embody Your Power, I pull from both Dr. Levine's Somatic Experiencing modality and Dr. Schwartz's internal family systems method, as well as my additional training and experience in contemplative psychotherapy, holistic nutrition, functional neurology, shamanic healing, various types of meditation, transformational coaching, and more. Since 2008, I've been working with people from all walks of life in private practice, and it's this experience that has helped me develop and refine an integrative approach to health and healing. My model addresses the need for completion, unlike many therapies that focus on managing the symptoms of trauma, which actually strengthens the protectors and doesn't get to the root of healing. Other therapies also aggressively push down thoughts and actions that appear disruptive or destructive, which perpetuates an internal war. Other modalities may also desensitize people to the symptoms of trauma, which doesn't allow for the impulses to move through them to completion. Unfortunately, many modalities don't recognize or validate the inherent wisdom and intelligence in our response to trauma. Embody Your Power brings together wisdom from many sources to create a profound, effective, efficient, and integrative way of working with trauma, neglect, burdens, and unmet emotional needs. Embody Your Power returns power to your mind, body, and spirit where it was lost. At the end of this episode, I invite you to reflect on whether you default on one of the defensive responses when faced with a threat. Do you default on fighting, fleeing, or freezing? Lastly, think about how it would feel if you can help your mind and body have a new corrective experience in relationship to the past, where now you get to experience the power of fighting back or running away when originally you weren't able to. Thanks for listening to this podcast. If you found this episode helpful, please consider assisting me in reaching more people by sharing it with others or writing a review. Together, let's raise our consciousness to help evolve humanity. For more information, please visit my website, daniellecaron.com. That's DANIELLECARRON.com.